For Honor is a game that's been going hard for over 6 years. Among those 6 years, there's been lots of missteps, and one big one that nobody seems to talk about is For Honor's arcade mode. This abysmal attempt at adding PvE to the game, which cost you money to purchase, and you can only play with like one other player, which resulted in a game mode that was exceedingly difficult and unnecessarily frustrating, all the while being barely rewarding and having only two forms of content in the form of just random quest and weekly quest. It was forgotten about and nobody cares about it right now. From my perspective, we should want a good arcade mode that provides an alternative to For Honor when it comes to content. With For Honor being usually not at all enjoyable to play against other players due to exceedingly amounts of things that can go wrong for you, I can imagine those who want an alternative to PvP, and that's what arcade is supposed to be, an alternative to PvP. And it is, but it's not a very good one, is the point that I'm trying to make. So how do you make it better? Well, for one, remove that price tag off of it. People already pay for the game itself. They should at least have access to arcade, and seeing For Honor as a fighting game, in my opinion, you can't just lock a basic feature in most fighting games behind a paywall. Second of all, make it more multiplayer based. Because, well, why not? That's more content and more reason to experience arcade mode. Right now, you're only able to play with one other player and you have to invite them. How about instead, you can play with 3 other players, or even 8, since you can have 8 at once within one match. And instead of having to invite them, you can just go into a queue, like a role queue you see in MMOs or like hero shooters. And limiting arcade mode around which just random quest and weekly quest isn't enough. You can add monthly quest, or better yet, game modes you can play that are PvE centric. Ubisoft isn't unfamiliar with said content either. When it comes to For Honor, they've made PvE before, and it can totally work. In fact, how about even recycling the base game modes and add them to arcade mode, but with modifiers? Arcade mode makes its scenarios interesting by giving the modifiers which change how you approach said scenarios. Admittedly, said modifiers are made specifically to be as unnecessarily difficult as possible, but for a PvE version of Dominion just to be the base version of Dominion, but you play against bots, which is essentially just player versus AI, would suck. With arcade mode comes the chance to breathe more life into For Honor. With a revamped arcade mode, you can basically make for an enjoyable game, or at least a more tolerable version of For Honor, with PvE and all. For Honor being a game that its players don't seem to enjoy playing at all, from my perspective, comes down to it being a PvP game with balance issues that wouldn't see much complaining about, say, in a universe where the game would be a PvE focused game, and it wouldn't catch much flack for being the unenjoyable shitfest that it is. Yes, it would be an unbalanced PvE game because some heroes are more useful and more viable than others, but it's not PvP. See, being outshined in PvE means that yes, there's better, but you're not out of the table of options to pick from. But in PvP, being outshined means you're going to have to perform better against other said options directly. Thus, picking Nobushi over Pirate in a PvE setting in For Honor isn't as much as a big deal as, say, doing it in a PvP setting. People can finally play the heroes they want now, with the threat of being curb stomped as a result being lesser in PvE. A revamped arcade mode has the potential to basically breathe new life into For Honor, with the whole not being a vapid, empty doll sadomasochist session you occasionally invite a friend to join. The reason For Honor players should want this is because of more variety within For Honor as a game, more content for the game, and for few within the community who want a break from the other sadomasochist sessions that is just Dominion and Breach. In general, playing Breach is just prolonged suffering with snowballing effects, and playing Dominion is just suffering but with incompetent smooth brains as teammates. Yes, it would require lots lots of money and resources to even do such a thing like revamp arcade mode, especially with the suggestions I've made myself. But that would be an investment worth making because it would be good for the game itself.